Today we're doing front brakes and a U-joint on this 2006 Nissan Pathfinder. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it in neutral. That way I can turn the driveline while I have it up in the air without any issues there. All right, before you start any brake job, you wanna go ahead and pull off your master cylinder cap. And we're gonna set this fluid level. Right now we're at the max. We wanna set this halfway down between the minimum and the maximum line whenever we're gonna be doing either front or rear brakes. The reason we do that is so that when we push those calipers back in, we don't overflow this master cylinder. Usually about halfway down is gonna be one axle. If you were doing both front and rear, then you'd want it down at the minimum line and it would rise back up to about the maximum line. It's about halfway there. And then I like to just toss a rag over the top of the masters so no junk can fall in there, and then if it does overflow a little bit, it'll soak up on the rag and not spill all over the place. All right, whenever I'm doing brakes or steering and suspension work, I like to stay at one corner of the car rather than going all the way around and taking everything apart. I just bring my cart right next to me. I'll take everything apart, do all the work on this side, get the wheel back on, and then wheel the whole cart with all the tools out to the next side. And in my opinion, that's just a lot faster to do it that way. These have tons of pad life left on them, but they got pad slap last time and they're pulsating really badly, so that's why we're getting replaced today. Nice. Somebody actually put silicone on this last time. We're gonna get rid of all that. We want a nice flat clean mating surface between the brake pad and the caliper. And I like to wire wheel and grease up any parts that are metal touching metal, including the piston faces and the caliper itself. Whenever you're compressing calipers, don't ram them in there as hard and as fast as you can. I like to just slowly push them in. They're these little roll-locks with a silicon carbide bit on there that goes over your wheel stud. We're going to use this to clean up this hub face. We need this hub face to be perfectly clean and smooth. That way that new rotor, once we get it mounted on there, doesn't have any sort of built-in run out into it. If you leave all these rust chunks on here and just slap a new rotor on, a lot of times what'll happen is it'll feel smooth at first, and then a few months later, 10,000 miles later, you'll start getting a wobble in your front brakes. Then final step, I'll go ahead and get inside the corner on this hub right here where the rotor sits over, and also where the wheel mounts, that way we get all the corrosion off of there too. These little wires do go flying off. They'll get stuck in my shirt sometimes, so make sure you're wearing glasses. And also, don't stand right in front of it like this. Stand off to the side. That way it's flinging stuff that way and not at your face. Now we can go ahead and prep our caliper for side number one. I pull all slide pins out, clean out the bores, clean up the pins. You always want to keep them in order of where they came out from too. So I always set my caliper brackets with the pins facing this way. and I just lay them out top and bottom. I'll fill them up with some brake cleaner. Grab one of these little pipe cleaning brushes that I have specifically for doing this. This flap file is to make sure we don't have any rust chunks sticking up that are going to make the pads fit too tight in the bracket. You always want to file the bracket down, not the actual pads themselves. So we want all the paint and protective material to stay on those pads. And 9 times out of 10, that's build up on the bracket. It's not that the pad has too much paint on there or that it was manufactured incorrectly. I go with a really light skim coat of some Skill Glide anywhere where metal's touching metal. So under the hardware, on top of the hardware. I know some guys don't like using it because they say it collects dirt, but this is a barrier from rust, and it's also going to keep the brake parts from making squeaking noises, because what causes most brake noises is metal vibrating on metal without any barrier in between. So this Skill Glide will kill 2 birds with 1 stone here by protecting from rust and also keeping our brakes nice and quiet and keeping everything freed up and not getting stuck in the bracket. You don't want to spray brake cleaner on these rubber boots. It'll swell them up and get them stuck inside the bore. So just wipe those off with a rag. Some new grease on there. And that can go back in. If they're really rusted out, you can wire wheel them, but just don't get the brake cleaner on those rubber boots. Just replace those if those are bad. And you don't want a whole bunch of excess grease on these slide pins. It can actually hydro lock down inside the end of the bore here. So you just want to coat it with a skim coat like that. Cool, let's grab some parts, dude. But typically your wear indicator goes on your inner pad, and you got to make sure that you're putting it in the correct orientation. Your wear indicator wants to be on the leading edge of the rotor. So if the wheel's turning this way and the pad is on the back side of the wheel, we want that wear indicator on the bottom. However, if the brake caliper was mounted on the front or the forward side of the wheel and the rotor's turning this way, we would want that wear indicator on the top. That way it's pushing the wear indicator down, because if you have the wear indicator facing this way and it's pulling it up away from the pad, a lot of times it'll just break that wear indicator off. Something that's especially helpful is these little brushes. They're just like arts and crafts brushes I get off Amazon, especially on hardware like this that has like the little anti-rattle clip built into it. It's a lot easier just to paint it on with a brush rather than trying to use your fingers. And you can just get a light skim coat on there and then brush off all the excess. You don't want any excess on there that's going to be able to get onto the brake rotor or onto the brake pads. But again, this will help prevent from rust, this will help prevent from noise, and this will also help make sure that the brake pads don't get stuck in the brackets and then get uneven like wear from top to bottom. This hardware doesn't stick in here very good, so I'm going to wait to put the pads on. A lot of times I like to load the calipers up on the bench, and actually let's just see how this works out. If you put your pad in there diagonal like this and then roll it into place, that seems to be the most effective way that I've learned how to do it over the years. And I'm going to go ahead and mount these ones on the car though, because this hardware doesn't fit in here super tight, so it's probably just going to fall apart if I try to mount it. I like a little bit of blue Loctite on the caliper bolts. Unless it calls for red, then I'll add red, but this one didn't have any to begin with, so we're going to add some blue there. Now these rotors are fully coated, so you don't have to clean them. I've had some people ask on my videos why I wasn't cleaning rotors, and these have a polymer coating on them, which is meant to break in with the new brake pads. It'll wear off, and then it'll wear off right in the correct spot where the brake pad rubs, so everything else stays coated. But the reason why you have to clean off brake rotors most of the time is because they come bare metal, and when they ship them, they put a coating of oil on here to keep it from rusting out. So you got to clean that coating of oil off the face, otherwise you're going to glaze up your new pads. But these ones are ready to install. This is just a wheel stud installing tool. I like to throw that on and get a lug nut just tightened down finger tight. That way it holds the rotor straight up and down and in place for me. Makes it a little bit easier to get your pads in and get your caliper bracket back on. And yeah, see, this hardware's already starting to fall off. It's alright, dude. We'll go ahead and torque these down to spec here after we get them ran down. If you're using ProDemand, we're going to go into the service manual, table of contents, down to brakes, mechanical hydraulic brake system, front disc brake, removal and installation of the caliper and disc rotor. I'm going to go to installation. We got it off of there, no problem. See if it gives us some torque specs here though. Service data and specs. Components. Here we go. This one, sometimes you got to read through the procedure to find it. The specs on this one just lists out all the components and then shows you the torque specs on them. Where's our caliper bracket bolts? And then you got to check and see if this is listed in Newton meters or foot pounds. They usually have a key at the top, and this one shows that all of them are listed in Newton meters, and then the actual foot pound spec is in parentheses. So we're at 136 foot pounds on this one. Beautiful. So same as what I showed you on the bench, we'll roll it from the inside corner and then roll it into place. See it a little better on this outside. And I usually try to get it up into the top first because gravity will make it sag down sometimes. You can push it up into place and then roll the bottom in. And then same thing on this caliper as the hardware. I'm going to put a light skim coat of some Steel Glide, just anywhere there's metal touching metal. And I'm going to wipe off any excess that might be able to collect dirt or be able to get on our brakes in any way. Didn't have these to begin with, but did come in our new hardware, so we'll go ahead and put these spreader little pins on here. These can be a pain. You got to hold your brake pads in place while you get your caliper on, otherwise they'll just pop right out of the hardware. Some of them are really stiff, some of them aren't. But if you have good sliding hardware, it'll just pop them right back out of there. Alright, so you got to hold your pads in place and then roll like the bottom of the caliper on, and then that'll keep them in place from there. Roll it up into place, no problem. This is one of the reasons I bought these thin profile snap-on open-ended offset wrenches, is because they'll fit into these brake caliper pins right here. A lot of normal size wrenches won't fit in between there. Sometimes you got to hold them to get them to tighten down right. Don't throw a wheel on it, dude, but that's all there is to it. Front brakes on a Pathfinder.